it appears that there's a new diplomatic push from the mediators and brotherly countries to revive the talks that were 2 days ago apparently hit a deadlock between Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban regime, because we're seeing news that Erdogan, president of Turkey, has actually insisted on maintaining the ceasefire between Pakistan and the Afghan. And we're also seeing news from the Iran side, where Iran offers assistance for this matter as well. Now, we have with us Anas Malik, who happens to be international correspondent for Asia One and also Pakistan's bureau chief for that. We would like to continue with Anas. Anas, what does it signal, do you think, that first Erdogan has actually emphasized and insisted on maintaining the ceasefire, and also the role that Iran wants to play into this? How do you see that?
Thank you so much, Mariam, for having me here. I think two things. President Erdogan's mentioned particularly that they would want the talks to succeed, that they're closely monitoring it, that they would want the ceasefire to hold. It signals that that diplomacy is not dead, and that Turkey would still want regional stability, that overarching role that it has been emphasizing on within the region and beyond. That is something that it is striving for, and that is something that it would want to ensure, even if it's not in the room, or if the negotiators are not, if the talks are not working out. That's number one. Number two, with regards to Iran, the fact that Abbas Araghchi spoke to both the Pakistani Deputy Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister, and then the Afghan Taliban regime's Foreign Minister just this morning, he's emphasized the need again for talks and said that Tehran is willing to play its role to ensure that the talks continue. So again, it also signals that Tehran's willingness to engage, which had been previously left out. Remember, Qatar and Turkey were there on the table as mediators. Iran was nowhere there. Iran has also had a tiff with the Taliban of late, especially with regards to the deportation process. But then Iran is the same place, let's not forget, where the NRF and the Afghan Taliban had met Ahmed Massoud, and the Afghan Taliban had met on the sidelines of the Tehran dialogues, right? And that was 2023 March, about a year and a half after Taliban takeover. So it goes on to signify that Tehran is still willing to remain relevant and be on the needs to emphasize for dialogue and diplomacy, furthering what Islamabad had previously been saying, furthering what Islamabad wants. And then, I mean, if it works out, the core demand of the joint counterterrorism mechanism, that is something that needs to be addressed, unless the Taliban are willing to give a guarantee on that. Because the JCTM, as proposed by the Pakistani side, it is comprehensive. It talks about trade, it talks about counterterrorism, it talks about audit, it talks about accountability, it talks about the verifiable nature of the acts that could have been undertaken. So in case only if the Afghan Taliban would want to show some sort of flexibility, then we see diplomacy moving ahead. But Islamabad has been very consistent. We saw when the breakdown of talks happened, Islamabad did not say that the talks have ended. Yeah. They've hit a deadlock. Exactly. They've again said that they are open to negotiate. So have the negotiators and mediators signaled the same as well. Yeah. But the onus again lies on the Afghan Taliban.
Now, Pakistan has definitely made it very categorically clear that they want the peace process. They want to be dedicated to the process of negotiations or something, right? Bringing the peace into this. But I want to know, we still know that the Afghan Taliban delegation is still in Istanbul right now as we speak. What do you think is going to be the conclusion? What are you going to take away from this? The talks, the mediation efforts, everything is going on. Things are underway. What could be the takeaway from the delegation going back?
Well, the Taliban delegation is due to depart from Istanbul in some hours from now. Yeah. So that also signals that the mediators have given up, at least for the time being. They've given up for the Taliban to think, to evaluate, to analyze, and to move forward that way, so that they can probably move ahead and sort of deliberate and come to something conclusive. With that being said, I think the mediators have also realized that when the Taliban put forward their proposal, the Taliban were not serious. One of the mediators has said that the demands were absurd. One of the mediators has said that the demands were irrational to the point that they could not even be discussed. So I think going forward, what's happened here is that while there is the emphasis on the need for dialogue and diplomacy, the mediators have somehow understood that Taliban are using this as a delay tactic, and again they've been pushing the Afghan Taliban to do on to live up to their commitments. The reason we saw that one of the mediators had explicitly said, without naming any country, that they understand the concerns that have been raised because they themselves have suffered greatly because of cross-border terrorism, without naming any country. So I think that's quite, that would be seen as a feather in the cap for Islamabad, where they have made their point across and they've convinced the mediators to subscribe to what what Islamabad wants and how Islamabad wants things to proceed.
Thank you so much, Anas, for speaking to us. Well, apparently the diplomacy is still underway. Diplomacy isn't dead, is the takeaway from this conversation. But this is Mariam Ellahi reporting from Istanbul. Stay tuned.